people love and hate, because I guess as social animals, we do want to have some belonging to a community, not just to your best friends, not just to your partner. But if you have a larger whole tribe be there for you, it's going to be very different. So I guess a lot of people have this inner drive to belong to a community. But in China, it's a challenge because, well, we had the recent history of the collectivism, which didn't work. And we were raised for example, in most of the schools, we were required to wear uniform. And so a lot of people associate community with, okay, we're going to be the same, and having this fear of losing the individuality. So basically, there is always the tension between how much I immerse in this community and how much I still keep my own truth. So my wish was just to have this, to experiment and found this community where people can have both. People can have others and can have themselves. And this is actually the community I want to belong to. So I was basically, I wanted to have a community that I feel comfortable.
Practically on a day-to-day level, when you're with your community, either online or elsewhere, how do you navigate this fine line between giving to the community and, and being there for the people in the community and doing the things that you feel are necessary to do for the community versus belonging to yourself and just, letting yourself be who you are?
Yeah. I am still very authentic at the community. So I express something that I don't agree with someone, or I actually welcome conflicts in a community. This is another thing, because if a community has no conflict, it's not safe, actually. And it's a safe community if you have conflicts, and after a conflict, you actually get closer. So for intimate relationship as well. So for me, I'm a huge believer of conflicts. And
yeah.
So that's why for me, I make myself comfortable in this community by sharing myself authentically and not being afraid of having tension with someone. And then people would then feel the real safety of this community. Like they would feel where the boundaries are. Interestingly, when you ask this question, how I navigate this, all what I can think of are about conflicts, and they're beautiful. And oftentimes, I also sometimes feel this nervousness. Oh my God, this is a conflict. Of course, we will have that fear response, like and I'm gonna ruin this community, and people are gonna leave me. Of course, we will have that fear, but oftentimes it ended up beautifully. So,
as you know, and as really anyone who has that background knows, we as a culture tend to avoid conflict, and we try to be as harmonious as possible. And there's that picture of like the pictogram of the European way of addressing conflict, which is like straight on, walk right through the conflict. And then there's the Asian way, which is here's the conflict, and now we're going to walk, and then we go around it, and then we never touch it, and then we leave it, and and I feel like the only examples of conflict that I saw in my childhood were the ones that were explosive. It was when people had stuffed up their emotions for so long that they simply couldn't handle it anymore. And there was one thing, the straw that broke the camel's back, and then it just was a volcano. And so those were the only instances where I saw anger or upsetness or, difference in opinion really strongly expressed. So my association with conflict was extremely traumatic. And you learn as a child to kind of like watch people and detect who is non-verbally angry with whom. And you try to navigate that space of, okay, I know that these two people are are fighting in their heads. They're not saying it to each other, but the way that they're behaving and the way that they're acting is clear that there's something going on. And so you're just trying to move through that tension without setting it off, because if you set it off, it's going to be explosive, and who knows what's going to happen as a result of it. And of course, coming from that kind of background, whenever I detected people outwardly, more with other kinds of conflict, which were a lot less serious, I would have that same response of like, oh my God, something terrible is going to happen, or, I need to get ready for the worst. But I'm so interested in like witnessing, how in, whether it's an online community or an in-person community, how when people are upset with each other, or just annoyed or irritated, or having a bad day with each other, or someone did something that the other person didn't like, but it wasn't on purpose, how you just address it.
Well, I was from this kind of background as well. Like I was afraid of conflicts, but so basically I didn't have any positive example of fighting in a different way. So basically my growth was about like those kind of experiences getting less and less, and I have more and more different experiences, and then I started to shift. I started to even like conflicts. So yeah, it's a process of accumulating different experiences. And in circling, it's exactly this kind of process, because you go there not just once. It's like meditation. You don't just do it once. You do it daily, or you do it weekly. And then you go there, and time again, you started to trust that it's okay to express your own irritation. It's okay to even feel aggressive, and you will be well received. Or if not, it's also, and then you will take that responsibility to solve that, and or to find compassion or meet each other in halfway. So with all that, and again, it's about repetition. So you don't do it just once, and then with repetition, your experience changes, and then your idea changes as well.
You're talking about this this concept of circling. Can you talk a bit more about how that's set up, what that looks like?
Circling is a way of interpersonal meditation. So we still meditate in the sense that we're staying in the now. We're closely connected with our feelings and sensations and thoughts, and we just express authentically. So that's in line with meditation. But it's not like you close your eyes or you just stay silent, but you're connecting with people. So it can be one-on-one, and it oftentimes is in a group, in a circle. So that's it, called circling. And you just share to the circle whatever is alive and true in you. So you just speak with your impulse and share what's true to you. And then in circling, we have this, you can imagine this infinity sign where you have you share impact, because whatever you share, it's going to create some impact on people. So people will pick that up and share how they are impacted. And then you will be impacted by their impact. So it's this infinite interaction with people. So oftentimes within an hour, especially, so there are different circles. One is like a birthday circle, we call it. So there's one person being the center of attention. So everyone is being curious about what's it like to be this person. So oftentimes during, for example, 1 hour or 40 minutes or even 20 minutes birthday circle, you can get so much into this person's world. You can, oftentimes it's even healing, or it can be trippy. Like a person can go to their past, to their trauma, and can release a lot of things, or can touch upon their really deep wounds or something they don't even know about themselves, and then it can be magical in those one circle, one session. And it sounds really simple. I just say what's alive in me now, which sounds really superficial and really...
That does not sound simple.
No?
That does not sound simple. I'm thinking of me in a group of, 6 or 7 people. And even though I've done a lot of work on myself, I can still feel the resistance to say, if someone is triggering something where I'm like, oh, I feel kind of annoyed with you. That is hard. That feels very difficult to say.
I have to say, even for me, like as a circling facilitator, it's very hard to say that. And especially for a facilitator, you are supposed to hold space for people, and how am I gonna still express my real feelings while still making this whole space safe? It's a constant challenge for me, but also it's a great practice for me to state my truth. And then I'll give you an example. If I really feel annoyed by someone, I will share that, but I will not just share as a judgment, like you are annoying, but I will say, I notice that I feel some tension in my body, and while hearing her speaking, I feel some irritation, and I don't know what that's about, but maybe we can explore it together. Or if I do know what's that about, I would make a request like, could you slow down a little bit? Or I feel the atmosphere, or because it's true, like maybe the atmosphere feels a little bit tight or cold, or maybe I want to just check with this person, are we still connected? So with all those, I'm still expressing my irritation, but with a little bit more care.
So my last question is a little bit in the direction of the sex podcasting. What do you think is still missing in the dialogue about intimacy, sex, and relationships, whether it's for a Chinese audience or Western audience?
The first thing that came to my mind is spirituality. Because oftentimes sex is seen as the opposite, or from like mainstream religions, or it's just like very rigid, like you're only allowed to have sex in certain formats or in certain restraints, or it's often talked about in a very secular way, like this is the science of female male anatomy and those kind of things. I think this topic sometimes will scare people away, like as if you combine sex and spirituality, you're entering into a cult or something. But I really want to make it, if possible, to connect sex and like everyday kind of spirituality, like and everyday sex. Like you said, we talk about sex like we talk about food, but I have this wish to talk about sex and spirituality the way we talk about food. So that can be something that I would be enthusiastic about.
Jess, I could talk to you for hours, probably days and weeks, and I feel like we just stumbled upon this whole other thing. So I feel like I need to invite you back for a second round. So Jess, if our listeners wanted to look at how to get into circling or check out Octopus Awakening, how do they do that?
Yes, and unfortunately now my content is more available for Chinese-speaking listeners. So if you can Google or just find me on any Chinese platform like WeChat or Weibo, you can search for 神爱玩财, which means spirituality, love, playfulness, and fortune. So, and for, of course, this one is English episode, and for English speaking audience, you can find me on YouTube. Just search for my name, jingshu.love. That's my Chinese name.
And about circling, can they do that also?
Yeah, if you want to do circling in Europe, in the US, or online, you can always go to Circling Europe. I think it's .com, or you can go Google Authentic Revolution. That's a US-based platform. And yeah, there are probably a lot of circling events in major cities in the world because it's really growing fast. And yeah, and in Chinese, you can just search for 章鱼觉醒, which is Octopus Awakening.
Jess, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing all of these beautiful insights and experiences. You're such a fascinating person, and I'm just so grateful that we met each other in life. So I look forward to having you back on the podcast whenever you're ready.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Asian Stories of the Third Culture. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We have a preview of our next episode coming up for you. Before we roll it, You can find any resources referenced today in the show notes. If you resonated with what you heard on the show today, follow our Facebook page to get updates on what we're working on, and our Facebook group to add your voice to the conversation. Got the perfect third culture Asian guest for us? Get in touch on our website, beyondasian.com,